Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister made a surprise visit to Ukraine just ahead of the 2-year anniversary of Russia's invasion. While there, she announced a Canadian-led plan to help reunite children abducted by Russian forces. Joly also responded to escalating tensions in the Middle East. I spoke with Minister Joly on Saturday from Chernihiv, Ukraine. Minister Joly, thank you so much for making the time while you're there.
It's a pleasure, Rosie.
I want to start, if I can, with the announcement that you made on, I believe it was Friday or Thursday, this Canada-Ukraine initiative to try and get children back from Russia, children who have been deported unlawfully. There are thousands of children that this has happened to, but only, I think, around 400 that have managed to get back. What can Canada do to help with that kind of endeavor?
Well, like you were saying, this is clearly a problem that we've identified, and it's part of also President Zelensky's peace plan. So we wanted to work with many countries, including, of course, Ukraine, to bring back these children to their loved ones. So what we'll be doing concretely is we will be working with Ukraine to build consular cases for each child, each children that has been forcibly displaced or abducted. And then we will use Canada's diplomatic network from around the world to make sure that we can advocate for these children to come back and convince many other countries.
It's been almost 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, and the Canadian government, from what I understand, has sent a draft proposal of security assurances to Ukraine. Yeah. In fact, what G7 countries pledged to Ukraine was that there would be security guarantees until NATO, until Ukraine is part of NATO. Why has Canada not committed to security guarantees? Is that what will be in the final agreement, or are you sticking with the word assurances?
So what we said, so first and foremost, it was Canada's idea to develop this path to security assurances. Why? Because we know that even one day when the war ends and until Ukraine is in NATO, we need to make sure that Ukraine is strong and has enough of a security and a deterrence force to make sure that it is able to deter Russia from rearming and reinvading, because we know that Russia will still be a very dangerous neighbor to Ukraine.
Are you close to a final agreement with Ukraine then?
Well, I'm here to push to get it to the finish line. Okay. I think we can conclude it in the coming weeks, and I think this can be transformational as we would do it, but also all the G7 countries would do it.
I want to ask you a couple of questions about the Middle East, not surprisingly. The U.S. has launched dozens of strikes in Iraq and Syria against Iran-backed militias that were behind the killing of 3 American soldiers in Jordan. Given that, how concerned are you about a broadening regional conflict?
Of course I'm concerned, Rosie, and I think Canadians are concerned. So we need to make sure that we do everything for this conflict not to escalate. And that's why, first and foremost, we need to get to a hostage deal. Hostages need to get back and be released. We need more humanitarian aid in Gaza. The situation is just absolutely catastrophic. And we need to make sure that Hamas lay down its arms. And this is the first step to make sure that eventually we get to a path where we can have a longer truce, a sustainable ceasefire, and eventually much more a path towards a two-state solution. And I would say an irreversible two-state solution where finally Israelis and Palestinians will be able to live side by side in peace.
I'm sure you saw that the U.S. State Department is now saying that once the conflict is over, the U.S. will recognize Palestine as an independent state. It's not going to wait for Israel to get on board. That is a small shift in that two-state solution policy. The UK is also saying that. Is that something that Canada agrees with?
This is certainly something we're looking at, and we're working amongst the G7, because at the end of the day, we know that when we think in terms of the longer perspective for the region to be living in peace and security, there needs to be an Israeli state living side by side to a Palestinian state. And meanwhile, there's lots of work to be doing there. Hamas cannot be part of this form of negotiation, of solution. We need a reformed Palestinian Authority. We need also to have a government in Israel that is willing to do the important work to get to this two-state solution. And that's why we're very critical of what President Netanyahu has said in the past weeks. And we have always had as a country, as a position, that we believe in this two-state solution. So we will be working on it for sure.
A couple more questions. The U.S. has now twice sanctioned Israeli settlers in the West Bank, inflaming violence really in that area. Is Canada going to take similar action?
Yes, we will be sanctioning extremist settlers, and we will also bring new sanctions on Hamas leaders.
When will that happen, Minister?
We're working actively on it. I'm making sure that while I'm in Ukraine, the work is being done in Ottawa, and I look forward to doing announcements soon.
Okay, you called the mother of Mansour Schuman, the Canadian-Palestine citizen journalist.
A very sad conversation.
Yeah, who's gone missing for 10 days. They don't seem to know where he is.
Yeah.
Some of his friends say that they believe he was taken by the IDF. CBC has not confirmed that, so I don't know how accurate that is. What are you doing to find out what happened to him?
So I contacted directly my Israeli counterpart to raise his case. And we are actively working on it. I've been in contact, like you said, with his mother.
Yeah.
It was a very sad conversation, as of course she is going through a lot of pain, and she's very anxious. And so my goal is to make sure that I'm still in contact with her, contact with the family members, and we need to get to the bottom of this question.
I want to ask one last question about the 100 or so Palestinians and 1,000 or so Palestinians in Gaza who have been put on this list of extended family members of Canadians. I know that there's not a whole lot Canada can do to help those people get out, but as they wait, I've talked to a number of people now whose family members are being killed. They're on the list. They could get to Canada if there's a way to get out, but in the meantime, people are losing their lives. What, if anything, can you do to try and see if there's any way to get those people out of Gaza?
So we've been working, the Minister of Immigration and I, Mark Miller, on this issue. We are in contact with COGAT, which is the organization under the Defense Department that approves basically the passage to the Rafah Gate or the Kerem Shalom Gate. And so that is why we'll continue to make sure that the people that were authorized by Canada to leave are able to. We've made a commitment to these families. I know that these families are also waiting impatiently for them to leave. And so that's why we will continue to pressure the Israeli authorities, at the same time working also with them, but also with the Egyptian government, which we also need the authorization from. So we were able to do this with the Canadians themselves. We were able to evacuate hundreds of Canadians out of Gaza, not necessarily at the pace we would have liked, Rosie, because it was long, but we had to deal with many authorities giving their authorizations. We're doing the same right now. And you have my personal commitment, Canadians have my personal commitment that this is a very important priority.
Minister, thank you for making the time. Safe travels. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.